Tennessee This Week from WATE's 6 on Your Side starts now.
Hello and welcome to Tennessee This Week. I'm Bo Williams. The race for Tennessee governor heating up, and this week we are joined by one of the candidates on the Republican ticket. Congressman John Rose joins us here today. Thank you so much, Congressman, for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you here. So we've got a lot of questions, so let's just jump right into it. First of all, let's turn the clock back a little bit. Kind of tell me when it first hit you, said, you know what, I'm entering this race. What was it that said, this is the year I'm going to make this run here?
Sure. So a little more than a year ago, as I was taking stock of where I was in my service in Congress, I had not planned to stay in Congress indefinitely and knew, of course, that Governor Lee was term limited. So that's when we started to think, my wife and I, think about possibly running for governor. Started visiting folks all across the state and listening to what their concerns were, and started to solidify our plans.
And as far as the campaign, I mean, like I said, it's been a little bit since you made your announcement. We're just under a year. We were talking before we went on air, before things are really going to, it'll be every time for everybody to head to the polls. How are things going right now from your perspective?
I think very well.
Yeah.
So I got in back on March 20th. Have been to all 95 counties, heard from lots of Tennesseans about what their concerns are for the future of our state, and the response and the reception has been very positive. Building name identification, that's why we got in when we did, because I knew I had a lot of Tennesseans to meet and wanted to hear what their concerns were, and it's going well.
And for a lot of people, still getting to know you, I mean, a little bit of background, obviously you're a congressman, but agriculture, huge in your upbringing, that is for sure. Small business as well, law school. So it's kind of walk us through a little bit, kind of educate everybody.
Sure. Well, I'm a Christian, a husband, a father, a farmer, a small business owner, a conservative outsider, and have spent my career really in the IT training business of all things, and that's where I developed my experience and honed my skills as a manager and as an executive. Certainly have that deep agricultural tie here in Tennessee. I'm an 8th generation Tennessean and have the real honor and privilege of getting to farm the same farmland that my ancestors came and moved to back in 1790, 235 years ago.
Let me ask you this. Obviously, just recently, Senator Blackburn announced she was running for governor as well, on the Republican ticket, obviously. Looking back, there are a lot of similarities between the two of you, especially as far as your support for the president. How do you separate yourself, though, in this race? What do you bring to the table? What do you tell someone when they walk into the booth on Election Day and look at that Republican ticket? Because obviously Blackburn has a lot of followers. We've seen some of the Beacon poll numbers. I don't know if you follow the polls or if you put any stock into the polls, but again, what do you tell the voters to kind of tighten things up a little bit?
Sure. Well, the job of being governor is that of chief executive of our state. Mm-hmm. And I have that experience from my career really in the private sector. I didn't run for Congress until about 7 years ago. I've learned a lot from the time I've been in Congress, but those skills and those experiences don't really equip me, in my view, to be governor of Tennessee. It is the experience I had of taking an idea and turning it into a successful business, managing people, creating scores of jobs, signing the front side of a paycheck, not just the back. Those are the experiences that I think will equip me to be ready to be governor on day one. So I'm ready to roll up my sleeves. I'm not looking to come home to Tennessee to retire. I'm not looking for another trophy to put on my mantle. I'm looking for an opportunity to serve Tennesseans. And at the end of the day, I think Tennesseans are concerned about the future of our state.
Let's look at some of the topics for a moment. First of all, the grocery tax. I think that was something that came up as of late. Some people say, let's do away with it. If I'm not mistaken, I think you're kind of like, hang on a second, we need to take a look at this before we do anything like that. It's kind of, you're more of like, we probably should keep it, I'm gathering, than do away with it.
I think so. We have already, Tennessee has maybe the lowest taxes in the country. We've been fortunate that our prior leaders have managed the state well. We have low taxes and low debt, low regulatory burden on our businesses and our citizens. But I think we also need to have the revenue that it takes to run our state. We have some critical needs. And I'm a firm believer that you want every Tennessean to have a stake in the game, to have skin in the game, if you will. And so the grocery tax is probably one of the broadest taxes. Everyone gets a chance to help to support the cause of good government. And I think for that reason we ought to be careful before we have too many citizens who aren't helping to pull the wagon, if you will.
And I have heard other Republicans come up and say, okay, if in fact we do move in that direction, we have to figure out first how to bring in that same amount of money somewhere else we have to be able to pull from.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And again, I think I would stress that you want all Tennesseans to have a stake in the future of the state. The truth is there are challenges for our state, and every Tennessean, whether they know it or not, has a stake in the future of Tennessee. We want them to be able to embrace that and understand that, and there's no better way than for them to have skin in the game.
Yeah. Let's talk about education for a moment. Obviously a huge topic for everyone. I believe you have made a comment that if you're elected governor, you'd like to see a teacher kind of overseeing the Department of Education here in the state of Tennessee.
Absolutely. I have made that commitment, and I believe that's the number one issue facing our state is making sure that our schools are producing the outcomes for our students. I have young children. My oldest son is in the 2nd grade. Have a younger son who's not yet ready for kindergarten but getting close, and so we want our schools to equip our children for the jobs of tomorrow. And what we know is 90% of the students in this state are going to come through the public school system. The teachers of this state deserve to have a leader who understands the struggles and challenges that they face. And so I've made that pledge that we're going to have a commissioner of education in Tennessee who spent time teaching in a Tennessee public school classroom.
So do you think, obviously, there needs to be some attention looking at how things are going now, some changes need to be made?
Yes, I think we still have a lot of room for improvement. There has been great progress made. And I would say we want our parents to have choices, options. When the public school system is not performing adequately or failing parents, then we want them to have options about how they educate their children. But at the end of the day, we've got to make sure we get public education right as well. And if we're going to do that, it's going to be a team effort. We've got to have the teachers involved, and they have to have the confidence that we understand the challenges that they face and that their leader understands the daily challenges that they see in a Tennessee public school classroom. And so I know from experience that you lead from the front, and you need someone who has the experience to lead.
And stay on education for a moment. Obviously, vouchers, a huge topic of discussion and debate. Where do you stand as far as vouchers? Obviously, it's been a big push for Governor Lee. What's your take on that?
Sure. Well, again, I think we want Tennessee parents to have options. That's what the education scholarships are all about, is making sure that Tennesseans can get their kids into the school where they can be successful and thrive. And so, obviously the next governor is going to have a big hand in helping to make sure that program works. I suspect, like everything else that we do in government, there'll be the need for regular course adjustments as we move forward to figure out exactly how to make that program work. But at the end of the day, we want our parents to have choices and options.
Switch to health care, another topic obviously that impacts just about everybody. You've made the comment that you want to see health care available in every Tennessee county. So what's your vision here? What does that look like?
Sure. So, one of the challenges we face today, the congressional district that I represent, the 6th District of Tennessee, 19 counties, including Scott County in East Tennessee. Right. We have 5 counties in that 19-county area district of mine that do not have hospitals. And so, there is a limited access to care, and particularly emergency care in those counties. If you look statewide, Tennessee has lost more rural hospitals than any state in the country other than Texas. And so we have counties where there is no emergency care, there's no hospital, there's no primary care physicians in those counties. We've got to make sure that we address that. I'm not talking about creating a massive new entitlement. I'm just talking about working with the healthcare community to make sure that care is available and in relatively close proximity to every Tennessean.
Yeah. Kind of saying in that same topic, but you've talked about protecting unborn children. So, again, what's your vision here? Where's your stance on IVF and different things like that?
Sure. Well, I absolutely think that we should protect the most vulnerable among us, and no one is more vulnerable than an unborn child. And so I'm staunchly pro-life and would defend vigorously our laws here in Tennessee that protect the unborn. We also want to make abortion something that doesn't happen in our state. We want to make adoption something that is easily available so that kids that are not like me or my kids and aren't blessed to be in a loving home, that they can find such a loving home. And so I would fight to protect the unborn, to protect the right to life in our state. I would fight vigorously to do that.
got a list of questions, but unfortunately we're running out of time. So I'm going to let you kind of give your pitch here, one final pitch to the voters of East Tennessee. They're going to be tuning in here. What do you have to say to them?
Sure. Well, we live in a state that is blessed. We have low taxes, low debt, a favorable business environment, but we have challenges. We're growing quickly. If we're not careful, we're going to wake up in a few years and Tennessee is not going to be the Tennessee that many of us grew up in and cherish. We're not going to have the values that we cherish today as prevalent. And for those who are coming to Tennessee, the things that are drawing them here will go away if we don't have vigorous, effective, visionary leadership to attack those problems and confront the challenges that come along on a daily basis. As I said earlier, the reality is every Tennessean has a stake in the future of this state. And they need someone who will work with them and fight with them to preserve the best of Tennessee. I think that my executive experience prepares me to take on the job of being chief executive of the state. I think I can get started on day one. There won't be a need for any on-the-job training. And so I'm ready to go to work, and I hope that Tennesseans will hire me to be their next governor.
All right, Congressman, we appreciate it. I'm sure this will not be the last time that we talk, so
Thank you.
We look forward to having you back.
Appreciate you having me.
All right, again, Congressman, thank you, and stay with us. We'll be talking with our pundits and a lot more still ahead on Tennessee This Week. Welcome back to Tennessee This Week. A moment ago, we heard from Congressman John Rose, who is running for Tennessee governor. Let's bring in our panel of pundits to kind of unpack what he had to say. Joining us, as always, Courtney Piper, Craig Griffith, and Michael Covington. Great to see all of you.
Thank you.
Craig, we'll start with you. Any takeaways, first of all? We'll start there after our conversation.
Well, coming on the heels of the poll that we discussed last week that had him down 66 to 14 in the polling, he seemed very enthusiastic about it as a chances to be elected governor, which is good. And I like to see a race. I don't want to see a race where there's only one candidate running. There needs to be a much more thorough discussion of the issues, and you can't have that if it's only one candidate. So getting into it, he sounded very similar to Governor Lee, the current governor. I think he advocated many of the same positions that Governor Lee did, with a little bit more focus on the educational component of it. And it was interesting that he mentioned it in his announcement speech about appointing an education commissioner who has taught in Tennessee, which sort of is a direct hit at the current education commissioner who didn't have her teacher's license actually until she was well into that job. But she was hired because she was going to implement the voucher system, and we'll have to see how that works. Now, it was interesting that he supports vouchers, but he also said that the future of the state is in public education. And so we'll have to see how that differs from what the current administration did. Again, we're at the starting point of this campaign.
Right.
We'll have to see how it goes. I think if you look at the results of those polls, Marsha Blackburn is at her peak.
Yeah.
And I don't think she can go any higher. And I think that Rose has an opportunity to make up some of that gap. But you have to agree that Marsha has right now the odds-on favorite.
Yeah. Courtney, kind of the same question. Your thoughts on what you heard, but also kind of what Craig was talking about. How do you close that gap?
Well, first of all, Bo, I'd like to make an announcement that I'm the only I'm the Democrat on this pundit, so I'm not I'm not the target demographic
No, you're not.
when it comes to
You are
your
not the only
Republican
Democrat.
primary voter. Okay, so here's some unsolicited
But you are
the blue
advice.
suit today.
Yes, hence the blue suit.
You are a Tennessean, though,
I
so
am
you
a
can
Tennessean.
vote just like everyone else.
Here's the thing. John Rose needs to draw a distinct separation on issues between he and Marsha. And right now, they're still very much intertwined.
Right.
So what I would like to see in another Republican candidate to show that distinct difference is before ending the tax on groceries. Why should we have to pay sales tax on groceries? Before ending that, before not expanding or ending the voucher program, before expanding Medicaid, the medical community in Tennessee has spoken. They know that expanding Medicaid is the way to get hospitals and primary care physicians back into each and every county in Tennessee. Before expanding Medicaid and bringing back those tax dollars that we send to Washington, D.C. and never come back to the state of Tennessee. Take a stand on some issues that really draw a distinction between you and your opponent.
Yeah, I know he pointed out there's a lot of areas in his district don't even have hospitals,
Right.
don't have access to hospitals. So, Michael?
Well, the last time we had a major gubernatorial race, As I recall, it was Diane Black, Randy Boyd, and our current governor, Bill Lee. The only reason Bill Lee was close, the only reason Bill Lee had an opportunity to win in that race was because Diane Black and Randy Boyd had a bloodbath. They must have spent $50 a piece sending hit mail on each other to my home. Bill Lee comes to Knoxville, goes to Market Square, has one meaningful speech, leaves Knoxville with Knox County. That does not benefit Mr. Rose. Mr. Rose is going up against Marsha Blackburn. So I question, he seems like a very intelligent person, a very thoughtful person. I'm wondering why he's in the race, why he believes he can beat Marsha Blackburn. I've not heard that from him other than, I've only heard from him that he feels a need to serve in a different capacity. That shall not get you elected in Tennessee. So I'm still waiting. Why are you running? That's my question.
Craig, you kind of go. I mean, you have to do something to try to close that gap. You were the one that first brought up the space there on some of these.
And Courtney's right. You're going to have some sort of distinction between you and your opponent, but you can't get too far out of the Republican base, the Republican talking points to do that. So he's in a very difficult position. I don't see him advocating for expansions of Medicare in Tennessee. I don't see him advocating against vouchers, because they'll be accepted, by the time that this race is on. So it is a difficult, as Michael says, what is his call? What is going to be his strength in this? And I think that, he tried to get to it in the interview saying, I have managerial experience. And, everyone says, well, let's run government like a business. The problem with that, as in those famous words of Governor Haslam, everybody wants you to run government like a business until you do. And so we'll have to see. He'll have to come up with a more emotional appeal to the voters than just running the government as a business.
And on the flip side of this, if at this point, and you've seen the Beacon poll and the different polls, if you're Marsha Blackburn, do you do anything right now? Or you just keep doing your thing?
Yeah. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to hold yourself accountable to anyone because you're so far ahead. So like Craig said, that is the best way to start going further and further and further down if you get too confident, too cocky, and rely on a strategy of insulating yourself from everyone else because you're already too far ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, my motto is run like you're 20 points behind. Right. Even if you're 20 points ahead, because you can't make up that ground after you've lost it.
Yeah, and Michael, you kind of go along that thought. I mean, just in general, when we're looking at a race like this, where you do have that huge disparity between the two candidates right now.
Marsha Blackburn does not need to be in the same part of the state as Mr. Rose, Representative Rose. She needs to only go from place to place and validate the support of Tennessee voters. And that's what she has done in previous races. I think it will serve her well. Show up in Knoxville, allow people to come and be with you, validate their support, get on your plane, get in your car, go to the next location. She is very well received, she's very well thought of. That's all she needs to do until Election Day.
Now, the real story in this gubernatorial race, Bo, is what happens to the federal delegation chessboard after the gubernatorial race. That is the real question here. Well, for pundits, maybe for your everyday Tennessean. But that's what has my interest from a punditry level is sort of this chessboard that's now in play, depending on what happens with the gubernatorial race. Does Marsha stay in the Senate? If she stays in the Senate, does Mayor Jacobs lament his decision for staying out and running for a statewide office? I mean, it is going to be a real housewives drama here.
Yeah, depending on how this plays out, you can see a lot of the pieces start to move around that everybody's going to have to pay very close attention to, that is for sure.
I mean, we're all assuming that Mayor Jacobs will be the interim appointee. People seem to think that there's an agreement between him and the senator that you don't run Glenn or Kane, and I'll appoint you as the interim. But things change. That's a year and a half away from now, and it depends actually on when Marsha resigns from the Senate. Does she resign from the Senate on the day she's inaugurated, or a couple days before? If it's a couple days before, that gives Governor Lee an opportunity to appoint someone. So it is fascinating. We'll have to pundicize about it in the future.
We have a year plus to do
That's
it.
right.
So say it'll be here before you know it. Michael, we're getting ready to go to the break. Any closing thoughts on this topic before we head off to the break?
I think it's going to be a spirited campaign, but I think Marsha Blackburn is going to be working toward helping other candidates get elected, and I still think Glenn Jacobs is her choice to replace her.
All right, we're going to stop right there. Stay with us. We'll have more of Tennessee This Week after the break. Oh, if you could hear the conversations during the commercial break, all things politics, but we'll touch on what we were talking about in another show. Welcome back to Tennessee This Week. Knoxville's popular Children's Science Museum eyeing an expansion in a new nearby location. If approved by City Council, Muse Knoxville will begin leasing the Jacob Building at Chilhowie Park starting this fall. The Clayton Family Foundation donated $25 million to kickstart the project after previously announcing plans to build a science museum at the former Knoxville Police Department headquarters on East Hill Avenue. All right, so let's bring our panel of pundits back in. First of all, as far as Muse is concerned, Courtney, I'll start with you. Is this the right move, going to the Jacob Building?
Absolutely. I am thrilled about this. Absolutely thrilled. I live in East Knoxville. I live on the east side of town. When my kids were younger, we used to go to the Muse a lot, and when they got a little bit older, there just wasn't space there for them. And so I'm just thrilled about this move, that we will have this piece of civic furniture in East Knoxville. That's sort of the science center for young minds and young people. And I'm just absolutely thrilled. It can't get here soon enough as far as I'm concerned.
It's definitely a larger space. Michael?
I have been a big Ellie Kittrell fan, and Ellie Kittrell ran the Muse for years. For some reason, she left, and I'm curious about what that was. I do not begrudge the Muse getting a new location. I am deeply saddened that the Jacobs Building will no longer be available exclusively to the fair. I think the fair is essentially going to die. And I think that people are going to be really regretful of it after it is gone. And it has been slowly dying over time. So I think this is just taking us one step closer to the fair not being able to realize any realistic success in the location they're in now. And it saddens me.
And that has been a topic a lot of people brought up after this announcement was made as far as other events there at Chilhowie Park, and especially that includes the Jacob Building. Craig, your thoughts on that as well as the Muse moving into this space?
Well, I speaking with people that know the people on the board, the fair board, they've been actually looking for a new location for a couple of years now. So it was on their radar to move out of Chilhowie Park. But imagine this as a tourist destination. You have the zoo, and you'll have the Muse there, and I think it's great. That will be a great synergy that will be developed in that piece of civic furniture. I had to use that word too. The area, the center of the Chilhowie Park, still is subject to flooding issues. So if you want to do something in that middle part there, you have to really do a lot of flood work. So I think it's a great idea for the Muse. I think the community wants it after the abandoning of the idea of having the Science Museum down on the old safety building site. And I think it'll be well received by the public. And the Jacobs Building needs a refurbishing. And I'm assuming they're going to put air conditioning in it, now that you're going to have the Science Museum there. But you have to look at the fair's issues in another light too, because also on City Council's agenda to consider is donating land on the south side of Magnolia, where the fair had it was the midway for a while, and it also was where they parked their trailers. But it's going to be apparently sold to Emerald Youth.
Right.
To put in an Emerald Youth Community Center there, which is a great advantage to the community. So the fair is being squeezed out of that location by different projects that seem to be more community-based. So, and another thing is, when this fair was first, it was the Tennessee Agricultural and Industrial Fair. Knox County now is getting out of the agricultural business. There are still thriving farms in Knox County, but agriculture is not the significant factor in our economy that it was, say, 50 years ago. Those farms are now subdivisions with 500 homes on it. So it's sort of a phase that the community's gone through. And while I would, I don't like the the fair being going out of business, but I think it's inevitable and it's going to change.
Well, it does raise a lot of questions. Future of the fair, what goes on where the old safety building used to be, and we're going to talk about that and a whole lot more in future editions of Tennessee This Week. So stay with us.
The views of guests on Tennessee This Week are their own and do not represent the views of WATE 6 on your side or Nexstar Broadcasting.